Good vibes only, at least today. After another week of 500 baseball, is there reason for optimism? We'll ask Mark Sheldon. Plus,
managed the way we could, and I think it paid off, and we still have some work to do.
he's back. Just 6 months after going down with the gruesome knee injury, Joe Burrow is on the field again like he never left. Find out how the Bengals feel about QB1's return. And that winning feeling only lasted a week. Laurel Pfahler's here to break down another tough loss for FC Cincinnati in their new home.
From WCPO 9 Sports, this is Sports of All Sorts.
What up? Welcome to Sports of All Sorts. I'm Reggie Wilson. We got sports of all sorts happening across the tri-state. And doesn't that feel good? Just a year ago, we had nothing going on. While it is exciting to enjoy our teams again, some of them aren't giving fans a fully enjoyable experience. Well, unless you're the Bengals. Excitement couldn't be greater for them. But FC Cincinnati is still trying to christen that new stadium with the win, and the Reds are injury-ravaged and inconsistent. They dropped the first two games of the weekend series against the Cubbies, but don't get those brooms out. Reds trying to avoid the sweep in Chicago to the Cubs. First inning, Jake Arrieta runs into some trouble, plunks Tucker Barnhart with the bases loaded to bring in a run. Reds lead 2-0. They're not done. Jonathan India hits a grounder to third, beats the throw at first. Tyler Stevenson scores, and the Reds go up 3-0. Top fourth, Eugenio Suarez introduces the ball to the deep seats. An absolute no-doubter, almost out of the park, his 12th this season. It's 4-0. Tyler Mahle was brilliant today. Took a perfect game into the fifth. It gets spoiled, but he gets out of the inning by striking out the side. 8 Ks over 5, no runs allowed. Reds lead wire to wire and get the win 5-1.
I think today was, a good game in a lot of different ways, and we went up against a good team that was playing hot and, got a win to get to 500 on the road trip.
That was Intimate Conversations with David Bell. All right, my first guest is Mark Sheldon, who covers the Reds for MLB.com. Mark, how are you?
Doing great here in the unfinished basement. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It looks good. A work in progress, I'm sure. But
yes.
Mark, it's been a wild season so far for the Reds, but they're still able to get one today on one of the hottest teams in the division and salvage a road trip. How encouraging is that for them?
Well, they need to be encouraged and find the encouragement wherever they can. This was not an easy road trip. They finished a trip through Washington and Chicago 3-3. It featured an odd suspended game with the rain and a kind of a quasi doubleheader where they ended up playing basically 2.5 games in 24 hours. And with all the travel, 3-day games in Chicago, they had a lot to do, and it was not easy. But I think they should be happy. They could have won the first game here or there in Chicago. It was a 1-0 game. The wind was blowing in. They got some hits. They just couldn't push a run across. And then yesterday was kind of a debacle. So all in all, it wasn't a bad trip. It could have been better. They're not satisfied, but this is something they can work with and take back home to a Philadelphia team that's also struggling right now. So they have a chance to do well in this brief 3-game homestand.
And it, I guess, depends on the pitching. Tyler Mahle was strong today, but the Reds pitching still leaves much to be desired. Any reason to believe the staff will turn it around to help the team surge?
Well, you got to look at Mahle. He's been pitching well lately. His last 2 starts have been very good. Sonny Gray is really starting to turn things around, and his last couple of outings have been really nice. Wade Miley's coming off the injured list to pitch on Monday against the Phillies. Of course, everyone's waiting to see what happens with Luis Castillo. That seems to be the big, real Achilles sore spot right now. No one would have imagined him having an over 7 ERA and a 1-8 record through the first 11 starts. But there were signs before the 6th inning on Saturday that he was pitching pretty well. The numbers showed that he got a lot of weak contact and that his pitches were effective. So if he didn't walk those 2 guys and Amir Garrett didn't walk the 2 guys behind them, he may have been looking at his first win in a while. So it's hard to see right now that the pitching is going to get better, but there are reasons to think it will. The bullpen's got some work to do, but you have TJ Antone pitching well. Lucas Sims has looked great. Now they just need to get Amir Garrett and Sean Doolittle going, and they can feel a little bit better.
And I'm going to say this like him. Nick Castellanos continues to hit, yo. And so does Jesse Winker. How tough is it for the team to not be taking advantage of their success with more wins?
I'll talk like Nick too. That those cats are really slinging the bat well, dog. Sorry, but I will say they are carrying the team. This lineup is missing Joey Votto. It's missing Mike Moustakas. It's missing this Nick Senzel. There's all of those guys are a minimum of a week away. Senzel probably much longer after having knee surgery. They need hitters to contribute. And while Eugenio Suarez has largely struggled, he seems to be coming out of it. You got this 1-2 punch of Winker and Castellanos. They're both kind of zigzagging and going back and forth for the hitting title, but they're also hitting really, really well in all other ways, OPS and slugging, and they're barreling balls. And Castellanos has a long hitting streak going, 16 games now. And they're just their contributions are absolutely immeasurable right now. They're how important they are to keep this lineup afloat until some of these other hitters can get back.
All right, Phillies up next, as you said, at home before heading to St. Louis. That's going to be tough for the weekend. We'll see if they can turn it around, and maybe we're having a different conversation next time. But as always, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time.
All right, Reggie, take care. Thank you.
You too. Thanks. FC Cincinnati had plenty of chances to give the fans a reason to go home happy on the West End. Coming up, what went wrong against New England and what the club will look forward to as they get ready for a packed house at TQL in a couple of weeks. Let's take you back to Saturday. FC Cincinnati back on the West End against New England, going for 2 in a row, first half scoreless. Let's go to the 70th minute. Adam Buxa heads it in. Kenneth Vermeer is just sitting in amazement that happened. Revolution up 1-0. Final minute of the match. Plenty of opportunities for the orange and blue, but just no dice. Just like this one. The header by Jeff Cameron over the bar, and the match is over. New England wins 1-0. FC Cincinnati falls to 1-4-1 this season.
You conceded a goal from a set piece again, which is disappointing, of course, and then after we needed to come back into the game. You can see that we got some very clear opportunities to equalize as well, and unfortunately we couldn't pull the trigger, and that makes it hard as well.
So FC Cincinnati will try to regroup with 2.5 weeks until their next match against Colorado on Saturday, June 19th. The club will again try to get the first win in front of the home crowd. That one should be packed. First kick at 7:30 p.m. at TQL Stadium. Joining me for some FC Cincinnati talk is beat writer Laurel Pfahler with the Queen City Press. Laurel, thanks again for taking the time. Plenty of chances, but shut out again. What went wrong yesterday?
Well, I wouldn't say. I think it's more about what we could take positive from that, because yeah, I mean, they've got to start finishing those shots. That's definitely the key. But what I really liked was just seeing them really go for it. Jaap Stam was actually making more of an attacking substitution before New England got their goal. So they were going to bring in, they kind of changed from a 3-back system to a 4-back system, and we're trying to get numbers up with 3 up top, moving Caleb Stanko into the midfielder. And then they were in the process of subbing in Alvaro Barrial for Caleb Stanko to put more of an attacking player on the field. Caleb's a defensive guy. So they were making that move even before New England got their goal. So I really liked that. That showed that they were not going to be satisfied with a draw. At that point, it was scoreless. So the fact that they were pushing forward and getting a lot more opportunities than we've seen lately, I think that was a huge positive for them. Now they do have to figure out how to finish those shots. Brandon Vasquez had a really close one where he went near post, maybe should have gone far post. Some of it's just decision making. So I think that's going to come, but getting those kind of opportunities against a good New England team, and Matt Turner is a really strong goalkeeper, so he made some good saves. I think the goals will start coming if they can keep getting shots like that in the future.
Along the lines of drawing positives, that second half of the home opener seemed to provide a jolt for FCC, and something clicked. Although they didn't win yesterday, do you feel like they're going in the right direction?
For sure. We've seen the addition of a couple new guys on the back line. That's made a big difference. Lucho Acosta coming back from injury. I think all those things kind of tie into just what we're seeing And then the fact that they had their first home game, that was when we kind of saw the shift. I think the energy of their home crowd has really, not allowed them to quit games. These 2 times that they've been at home, I think they do feel that energy, and that was something they missed last year. So I think that plays into it. And yeah, they're starting to believe. Jaap Stam mentioned that in the post game yesterday, that he's seeing a difference in just their mentality because they are having a little more confidence. They are believing that they can be a different team.
Laurel, they seem to be building some positive momentum, and then there's this 2-week layoff. TQL expected to be at full capacity for the next game, so that should help. But how tough is this long wait for the next match?
Yeah, and the tough thing is they're coming off a loss, so they've got 3 weeks basically to think about this loss. And fortunately, it wasn't a terrible loss. It wasn't 5-0 at New York City. So at least there were some positives that they can draw on during that break. I think the break is it's going to be helpful for Jeff Cameron in particular. He's kind of limping around a little bit in the second half. It seemed like he maybe tweaked his calf, which had been he was getting some cramps a couple weeks ago. I don't know if that's something to be cautious about, but 3 weeks off could be really big for him, especially he came new into the team off a full season with Queen's Park Rangers over in England. So that's going to be good for him. So just more time together that they can work on some of the things that they don't have time to work on during a regular game week when they are preparing for a specific game. So there's a lot that they can accomplish in these 3 weeks, but it is kind of strange for them to go that long without a game.
We'll see how that affects things. Laurel, always appreciate your insight. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you for having me. Always good to talk to you.
Don't call it a comeback. Coming up, it appears the comeback is almost complete for Joe Burrow. We're talking QB1 and Bengals OTAs with Ben Baby. Welcome back. Not exactly football weather this week, but we are one step closer to football. Bengals back on the field for the first of 3 weeks of organized team activities. Keenan Singleton has the report on one big return to the field.
Joe, thank you for joining us.
Yep. Joe Burrow ran his fingers through his hair. He had to get it just right. Not many people expected to see him with helmet hair today.
We're out of the hardest part, and now the fun part begins.
And he's just getting started. 6 months after losing it all, he walked, ran, and threw. There are even rumors he flew, but no video exists. The Bengals had perfect attendance at the start of OTAs. No return, of course, more anticipated than Burrow's. However, it wasn't dramatic after tearing both his ACL and MCL.
I've been throwing to equipment managers standing on the field for the last couple months, so good to throw to some NFL caliber players, not the equipment guys.
No limps, no hesitation. The only thing gingerly about Burrow, his auburn hair.
Not looking to push the envelope. We all want Joe to play in September when the games really matter. And in the meantime, we'll have discussions on what his prep work will look before that. But it was just exciting to get him back on the field today and do the limited work that we did.
Even with the recovering knee that he estimates is 80 to 85% back, Burrow is already a step ahead of last season.
I have a lot more velocity now, and that was a big thing I wanted to work on this offseason. Obviously, it was tough with the circumstances, but we managed the way we could, and I think it paid off, and we still have some work to do.
Helmet hair never looked so good. Keenan Singleton, WCPO 9 Sports.
Thanks, Keenan. Pleased to be joined once again by a friend of the program, ESPN Bengals reporter Ben Baby. Ben, great to have you on. You were out there at Bengals OTAs this week. What were your observations?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway that you couldn't miss was Joe Burrow and him being back out there for that first day of OTAs. And we know that he's 6 months off of that surgery to repair that devastating left knee injury. And the fact that he was able to do so much, be involved in so many drills, granted, he was still out there in a limited capacity. But for him to be able to go out speaks volumes to where he's at in the rehab process. And it's a testament to all the work that he's put into this point to be ready for that season opener in September. Throughout the last few weeks, even the last few months, we've heard from people inside the building who have said, Burrow looks really good. They couldn't really gauge where he was at percentage wise or kind of how far along he was, but all they knew was that when they looked at him that he looked good. And now that might be an understatement. I mean, the fact that he was able to go out there and he looked comfortable, he was able to put a little bit of pressure on that knee. He didn't overexert himself. I thought spoke volumes about where he's at and honestly who he is as he tries to recover from this type of injury.
I know you got a chance to take a look at some of the rookies out there, notably Jamar Chase, Jackson Carman. How did those guys look?
Yeah, I thought Chase and Carman had interesting days, to say the least. We saw a couple of drops out of Jamar Chase and Jackson Carman. Honestly, we didn't see on the field very much, for being quite honest. And, with Chase's drops, I think a lot of people really wanted to freak out on social media. I said, listen, I don't care if he caught 100 or dropped 100. And even in the first game, if he goes for no catches on 8 targets or goes 8 of 8, we really don't want to put a whole lot of stock into anything that happens early in Jamar Chase's career. I think that's an easy way to set somebody up for failure. So, we'll see how he progresses, but to put a lot of, when you look at what he does, you see the size, you see how fluid he is, you see how quick he is getting in and out of routes, how polished he can be. And that, I think, is the thing that sticks out more than anything. And yes, he did have a couple of drops. And if that continues to be a pattern over the course of the entire season, then we'll have a conversation. Like if we're having this conversation in December, then it's probably a little stressing. But right now in May, I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about. With Carman, Zach Taylor had a very interesting answer because I asked him, about him really not working with the 1s and the 2s. And Zach said, oh, we don't have 1s and 2s, during OTAs. And then almost in the next sentence, he said, but guys have to earn their way onto the field. And I thought that was a very interesting answer. And it leads me to believe that there may be some work to be done for Jackson Carman during these OTAs to show why he should be the starting right guard, even though many of us project him to be at one of those starting guard positions in the season opener.
Ben, you tweeted a disclaimer on Twitter for fans not to have September expectations for May. Why did you feel the need to tweet that?
Because I think that we live in a time right now, and especially maybe it's also coming off of COVID as well. There might be an aspect to it, but it feels like we're kind of in that sweet spot where we are just craving football right now, and we think we're getting something meaningful in OTAs when in all actuality OTAs are meaningless. Let's be very clear here. I mean, we're not even getting guys in pads. We're not getting 11-on-11 drills. We're getting a lot of 7 on air or 5 on air and a lot of half speed drills. So when you look at it, there's only so much to kind of take stock into what we're seeing. And so even in any given practice, you can only put so much stock in it. And now when you look at how things have been scaled back in May and during these OTAs, I think the most important thing is that the whole team was there. And part of the stipulation for the whole team being there is that it didn't look like maybe OTAs did in previous years, that it was a lighter workload and you're able to kind of build that chemistry and that camaraderie. And I think that is the most important thing. And as you're kind of learning playbooks, installing new schemes and tweaks, that's what counts. And so, what you see on the field, I think it's quick, especially now that we can send video out there, in the span of seconds, and then everybody can analyze every frame of it. I wanted people to kind of make sure that they know what they're looking at. Otherwise, it just creates a problem for all of their expectations and also for all of us who have to answer for why things are going on right now.
Well, Ben, we always appreciate you calming us down, and I appreciate you giving your insight as always.
Listen, there are going to be plenty of high expectations when the season rolls around and the Bengals need to compete for a playoff berth in order to finish this rebuild. So that's going to be the time for high expectations. We don't need those expectations right now in May.
Thanks, Ben.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Reg.
So I want to hear from you after seeing Joe Burrow on the field this week. What are your expectations for QB1 this season? Tweet me at Reggie Wilson TV and make sure to use the hashtag SOAS. All right, we'll be right back to wrap up the show. Welcome back. Coming up after the show is In Depth with Graham Benzinger. Graham, what's on tap tonight?
Hey, Reggie. This week we go around the world touring the best locations we visited in the show's history. From the Congo with Dikembe Mutombo.
We just contribute to the society. I just want to make a difference.
To Monaco with Prince Albert.
Talk to any driver in F1, they all want to race in Monaco and they all want to win here.
We also make stops in China, Russia, Azerbaijan, and more. All that's coming up next on In Depth right here on WCPO 9 News.
All right, thanks, Graham. Looking forward to that. Well, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, but we got to go. I'd like to thank my guests Mark Sheldon, Laurel Pfahler, and Ben Baby for joining me tonight. And thank you to my village who helped me put this all together. Thank you for watching. Let's do it again next Sunday. Until then, have a good night and a very blessed week.